Hello Pokemon trainers, welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet video here on iStarly TV. Today I have my second team battle with Deiter. We both have our Pokemon at level 24. Our first battle I believe was level 14. Could be wrong. I think 15 actually. And this time we actually have two teams of Pokemon because we like so many of the new Pokemon each that we decided to have two teams this time around. So this is going to be two battles I believe. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. My team is very different from the first battle. In the first battle, I just kind of caught a lot of Pokemon that I thought were cool that were in the earlier areas. And a couple of those Pokemon, I kind of demoted them to my second team. My first team is kind of my favorites. As you can see right there, that's my first team. And this is probably as close to it as it's going to be in my final playthrough because I like all of these Pokemon. These are like some of my favorites from the new generation. And we'll see what Deiter has. So there's Deiter's team right there, and we always do it. I think I mentioned this in the last video, where we always do it where we say cover the screen because we want to surprise each other. We basically take out the team preview aspect of it. And I decided to lead with my Mankey because it's kind of the weakest member of my team. I know it's a little redundant with Flamigo, but as we saw in the last battle, Flamigo is kind of like the MVP of both of our teams. And as you can see here, we both still have Flamigo. And I know my Mankey's redundant with Flamigo, and it's probably the weakest Pokemon on my team right now, so I decided to lead with it. And despite the fact that it's the weakest member of my team, it's still decent as well. Like, it still can do some decent damage, and I think its speed stat is okay off the top of my head, so I just figured I could kind of do some damage, wreak some havoc with it, and if it dies early, that's fine, because again, it's probably the weakest member. Deiter decides to lead with his Mastiff, which is really smart on him. I think he might have led with that last battle as well. Really smart of him though, because Mastiff has Intimidate, and he probably recognized that most of my Pokemon are physical attackers, and the two Pokemon that are not physical attackers are psychic types. So that's just a great Pokemon for Deiter to have. Now, one thing about this matchup that's awkward for him though is, of course, I am a fighting type and he is a dark type. So he makes a good play here and switches out immediately into Deiter, the nightmare himself. If you saw the last battle, which I will, link in this video and put it at the end of this video as well, Deiter was a absolute nightmare. It basically destroyed my entire team. It was one of the best Pokemon on his team, if not the single best. And I'm terrified of it, definitely. And if you look at my team, I don't have a good switch into Deiter, his Flamigo. So I actually just decided to stay in here and go for the Shadow Claw. I considered terastallizing there. I get one hit KO'd by that wing attack. Again, Flamigo's just really strong, especially for this early in the game, but I considered terastallizing into a rock type, given that I figured he would use his flying type move, so that would at least buy me a turn to kind of get off some damage on him. But then I would pretty much immediately die after that to a fighting type move, so I thought it would be best to just save my terastallize and just kind of let my Mankey die, like I said, because it's the weakest. Now I go into for Girafarig, and I figured, I take neutral damage from both of his stab moves. I know Flamigo can get dark and bug type moves, so that was something I was a little bit worried about, but again, his Flamigo is so much of a threat that I was just kind of afraid to switch in any of my other Pokemon, and he's actually a little afraid of my Girafarig, even though, I mean, maybe he doesn't have any bug or dark type moves, but he makes a good play here, and he goes into his Mastiff mainly because it's a dark type, and he predicted the psychic type move there. By the way, fun fact, I guess, Girafarig is just one of my favorite Pokemon. Easily one of my top 3 favorite Pokemon in Gen 2, and probably just one of my favorite Pokemon in general. But either way, I do have Double Kick, which I passed on as an egg move, and given the Intimidate, it just does not do that much damage. And here's where I'm starting to feel like this is not going my way again. He goes for the bite, but at the same time, once again, I don't really have a good switch in. I could have switched in Flamigo there, and I probably should have. I just kind of didn't want Flamigo to take too much damage because it's so valuable, but in the end, I just decided to just do it anyway, and I almost accidentally terastallized there, but I end up going into Flamigo on the bite again, and I actually go for the Pounce here. Honestly, the reason for that was I just kind of figured he would be switching out here, and Pounce lowers the speed stat of whoever it hits. So I thought this would be a nice little moment for me to just kind of lower the speed of whatever he's going to send in, because once again, I think his Mastiff, even though it's not that strong, being a dark type is pretty good, and also the fact that it has Intimidate is a pretty big deal, so I think he wants to preserve that. Here he goes into probably his second most annoying Pokemon, which is his Spidops. If you saw in the last battle, I ended up losing mainly because of the Spidops, and I had to kind of play around its Silk Trap move, which protects it but also lowers my speed if we make contact. So I predicted the Silk Trap there and get a free switch into Girafarig, and I go for the Psybeam here. This is great against his Spidops because it means basically special attackers are great against Spidops, because again, that Silk Trap is just such an annoying move. I get off some good damage with Psybeam, and Girafarig finally goes down very sadly. Here I'm mulling over who to switch in. I have 2 fire types. I know there's a lot of overlap on my team type-wise, but again, these are just some of my favorite Pokemon from Gen 9, so I really just wanted to use all of these. I make the decision to go into Reaper here, my Scovillain, and I do have the Flamethrower, but I actually make, I guess, what's a smart play. Now this is funny. I go for the Trailblaze predicting him to switch out, and he does. So I use the Trailblaze there to basically get a free speed boost because I figured he would go into something that resists grass, and obviously grass is not super effective against, it's not very effective against bug, so I knew that it would not do much damage, but once again, I just wanted to get the speed boost, and there I accidentally Terrastalize again. But here I'm just deciding which move to go for against his Crocolore, I believe that's what it's called, and I end up choosing Bite. And it does not do as much damage as I thought it would. Obviously, when Crocolore evolves, it'll be a ghost type, but it's not a ghost type yet. It's just a pure fire type, and I really don't have much to do in this situation. I'm considering switching into my Tatsugiri, but Tatsugiri is really good. It's at least this early in the game, it's a water and dragon type with some pretty good special attack. So I kind of wanted to preserve that, for a last case scenario, I guess, or a worst case scenario. There I go for the growth just to get, a little bit of a boost. I figured kind of we're not really doing much to each other here, and I didn't think he would do that much damage to me. And then on his second Incinerate, he actually ends up knocking me out, even though the first one I think did less than half. So that was a really unfortunate situation for me. I think he just ended up getting a high roll there. And at this point, I'm down to 3 Pokemon, and I believe he has all of his Pokemon. I don't think he's lost a Pokemon yet. I'm just deciding, these are my 3 strongest Pokemon, and I'm just deciding which of them to send in. Obviously, Sashimi is a good choice. Honestly, I might have been texting Deiter. I was thinking, like, why am I taking so long? I think Sashimi is probably the best choice here because I'm probably faster than Crocolore, and his team, I don't think he has too many water resists, so I'm kind of free to just go for a Water Pulse here. Here I make the kind of little cheesy play, I guess you could say, and I predict him to switch again, and I just go for the Rapid Spin just to get a speed boost. I really did not think that he would stay in here with his Crocolore because, again, I'm just threatening it out with the water type move. Although, trying to think of his team, I can't think of any water resist. He does have Veluza, but at this point in the battle, I did not know about it, so that's, I believe, his only water type resist. The other, he has a lot of fighting types. He has a dark type. He has this one. I do not believe he has too many Pokemon that can take a water type move. So he finally makes the decision here and goes into his Veluza. He names it Azula, which is a cool Avatar reference, but also funny because Veluza and Azula kind of sound similar. I do get off the Rapid Spin, which boosts my speed, but this is an awkward situation for me because, of course, I don't really have a move that can deal a lot of damage to Veluza with my Sashimi. So I'm trying to decide what to do in this situation. My last 2 Pokemon, aside from Sashimi, are both basically frail offensive Pokemon in Flamigo and Armarouge, and obviously I don't want to switch in Armarouge against this thing, so I'm trying to make the decision on whether to kind of just stay in and just kind of get off some damage or switch into one of my strong Pokemon. I make the decision to go for the Water Pulse here just to get off some damage. I know that Sashimi has a good special attack stat, and also I have the chance to confuse his Veluza with Water Pulse, so I just kind of thought this was just the best decision all around, even though it's not a great decision for me. He starts by going for the Pluck, which doesn't do much. I think he predicted me to switch there, so that was a good call on his part, and then he goes for the Slash, which also doesn't do all that much, but I'm pretty sure one more attack will take me out. So, I just take another look, see what I can do here. Here I ended up Terrastalizing. I guess I just wanted to get an extra damage boost right there. Obviously, in retrospect, that's not the best idea. I think I thought that there was a chance I could knock it out with the Water Pulse, but at the end of the day, I just don't think that this was the smartest move for me. I mean, if by some miracle, I was also hoping for some miracle to confuse it or something, so I had a couple options there to where maybe I could, get the kill and then maybe start snowballing from there, but it just does not work out in my favor. And he even survives the second one, which is just a slap in the face, but I do get the confusion. And I thought maybe if I did knock it out with that first one by some miracle, I'm already at +1 speed and I'm terrestrialized into a water type, and I could just kind of potentially sweep or just deal a ton of damage to his remaining Pokemon before Sashimi goes down. But luckily for me, I do get the confusion, and that is Deiter's first loss of the battle. That's his first Pokemon down in the battle. And so now he's making the decision on what to go into, and he ends up deciding to go into his shiny Oinkologne. If you saw in the previous video, he showed me his shiny Lechonk, which he said he found right away in the game. So here I'm at +1 speed, and this should do a lot of damage, and it actually doesn't. I don't know what he's feeding this Oinkologne, but whatever he's feeding it is working because it did not take much damage. I figured it would. Maybe Oinkologne has decent special defense. I don't really remember, to be honest, but either way, he knocks me out there, and I'm free to go into my Flamigo with only 2 Pokemon left. And obviously that means I'm going to scare it out here, but I don't remember what I do here. I don't remember what I decide to do in this situation. I was taking a look at his team, and if you look at his team, yeah, that's pretty solid, pretty well-rounded team. I think my best bet is just going to be low sweep. He doesn't have any ghost type, so I'm kind of free to do that. And he barely has anything that resists low sweep. I guess he has a Spidops, which is pretty annoying with the Silk Trap. But here he does go into Spidops, which I actually thought he might do. In retrospect, watching the video, I get a little bit of damage with the low sweep, and we're kind of in a situation. This is kind of like the stalemate situation that we were in last game, where he goes for the Silk Trap and I use a physical move, and then that lowers my speed, and then it just kind of snowballs from there. So I actually make the hard switch into my Armarouge here. And this is my first time showing it off. When I sent it out, Deiter was really in awe of it. He wasn't expecting me to have this. He was really surprised and probably pretty annoyed. Here I make a very risky play, and I go for the Flame Charge, kind of expecting him to think that I'm a special attacker and to not go for the Silk Trap here. But to my horror, he actually goes for the Silk Trap, which is just awful for me because I was trying to get cute there and get a speed boost so that I could be faster than his whole team and maybe try to sweep. But he makes a good play there, I guess. Maybe just scouting for what I was going to do. I don't know if he expected me to go for Flame Charge, or maybe he didn't realize that I'm a special attacker. But either way, he makes a good play there, and I'm actually still faster, which is great. And I'm going to get off the Flame Charge, which is actually going to bring me to neutral speed, which is really funny in a roundabout way. That sequence of turns kind of just didn't end up mattering because I could have just knocked him out with Mystical Fire and not worried about dropping my speed. Either way, I get the first kill with my... I mean, the funny thing is, the awful thing here is that was my first kill of the battle because his Veluza knocked itself out. Here I just go for I think I just go for the Mystical Fire. I should. I don't remember what I do here. I go for Acid Spray, which is maybe a little cheeky, but I figured that his Oinkologne's pretty bulky, and so dropping its special defense would be a good play. He does go for the Thief, though, which is super effective, but it doesn't do that much damage, luckily for me. And then I'm just going to be able to fire off Mystical Fires, fire off, no pun intended, and that is going to knock out the Oinkologne. So actually going for the Acid Spray there, I think was a good play on my part because it allowed me to get off the special defense drop and then knock it out with Mystical Fire. Now he goes into his weakened Crocalor, which means I should be able to very easily knock it out with a very powerful Psyshock. And wouldn't you believe it, that is exactly what happens. So I'm actually kind of turning things around. This battle started out awfully, and I was thinking to myself, like, oh my god, I'm going to get destroyed again. I don't know what it is. I just keep losing against Deiter. I don't know why. And I had like 2 Pokemon left and he had like 5. And now here we are with Armarouge. And I'm, again, kind of just a little bit sweeping. Oh, and this is hilarious. Here I misclicked. I was like pressing A too fast and I clicked Psyshock. And that's huge because he's going to be able to take me super low with Bite. Luckily for me, he doesn't knock me out. Had he knocked me out there, I mean, you know, I think the battle would have been over. So, man, that was an awful misclick. I think we were talking to each other here on our chat. But man, that was just such a disappointing misclick. Because as you can see here, the Mystical Fire easily knocks out his Mastiff. And in all honesty, had I not missed there, I probably... Well, we'll see what happens here. I don't want to spoil it yet. But Deiter sends out his final one. It's funny because he was very clearly recognizing throughout the battle that Flamigo was easily his... And I do go down there, which is pretty unfortunate. But he was recognizing in the battle that his Flamigo, again, is his best Pokemon. And so he was very careful to not send it out the entire time my Armarouge was kind of sweeping through him, because he didn't want it to take extra damage. So here I'm just kind of taking a look at my stats, looking at my Terra type and everything, just trying to assess what I could do to win this fight. Importantly, had I not misclick with Mischief, I would have one-hit KO'd it or knocked it out easily with the Mystical Fire, and then he would have gone into Flamigo, and if I don't know if I would have survived the wing attack. I think he still has his Terrastal left, and it is a flying type Terrastal for his Flamigo, so I think there's still a chance that his Flamigo would have knocked out my Armarouge even at higher health with the Terrastal boosted wing attack. But if there's some chance that I would have survived it, I should have won this battle had I not misclicked there. Actually, and I think I can survive a hit from his Flamigo with my own Flamigo. Yeah, I barely can. So I would have been able to get off damage. So basically, yeah, that misclick might have just straight up cost me the battle. But either way, it ends up being a very, very close battle. And the funny thing is, it comes down to both of our Flamigos again, because again, or last time it did not come down to both of our Flamigos, but either way, Flamigo's an awesome Pokemon. It's just so strong. So I end up losing again, but at least it was a lot closer. I almost won. Deiter had one Pokemon left, his best Pokemon, and you know, I almost did a reverse sweep with my Armarouge. So that was an awesome battle. So let's go to battle number 2. And here we are with battle number 2. This is my second team. As you can see, I have a lot of Pokemon that were on my first team last time that I've moved to this team with a couple new ones. We have Cyclizar, we have Bellibolt, and we'll kind of take a look at what Deiter has on his team as well pretty soon. And there's the battle start, and I don't think we see Deiter's team just yet, but yeah, I guess I fast forwarded through the team select screen, but either way, he actually reveals that he has a Greavard. I think he had it in the first battle, and I lead with my Churro, my cute little Fido. I think I led with it in the last battle as well, in the last game, in the last video, I mean. But either way, my thought process with that was Fido's, I think, kind of decently bulky, and it's got a well-rounded array of moves, and being a fairy type is really good. So I just felt like it had a lot going for it that would help it kind of in most situations, basically. So I'm going to go ahead and start with that. He's going to start with his Gloop, which is a Clodsire, and that just is great for him because he's a poison type. So he's just going to be able to take very little damage from any of my moves and also threaten me with being a poison type. I just decided to go for Covet though, just because I know Clodsire is really bulky. And I wanted to scout what he would do, and I figured like I wouldn't die from one of his moves, but I didn't realize he would actually have Poison Jab already, one of the strongest poison type moves, and he just easily destroys me. So I thought he would, if he had a poison move, it would be like a weak poison move so I could live it or something and just kind of scout for what he's going to do. Also, I didn't really want to switch too many things into it, so pretty unfortunate situation for me there. Here I'm just deciding which of my other Pokemon to go into against his Clodsire. And I consider bringing in my Bellibolt because I have Water Gun, which is a weak move, but I realize he probably has a ground move. So here I'm just going to go into Cyclizar just because it's a strong Pokemon. I figured I can try to do a lot of damage. I think most of his moves were physical. He probably has some special ones, but you know, I figured just Breaking Swipe could help lower its attack stat and just get off some good damage. Here he makes a good play here and goes into his Tinka Tough, I believe it's called. I think that's the second stage's name. And I mean, obviously that's a great play because he's a fairy type and a steel type. So I am just in big trouble here with my Cyclizar. I actually have the Fire Fang though, and I decide to stay in, or do I? I don't remember actually. Let's see what I decide here. I do end up deciding to go for the Fire Fang there, and it does a lot of damage. Cyclizar is a really strong Pokemon, and I get super lucky here and get a burn. However, as we're about to see, he has Draining Kiss, which is going to do a lot of damage to me, and that's a special attack, which means it doesn't care about the fact that he was burned. He does get a critical hit there, but I guess since I got the burn there, I guess you could say we're even, and he heals up a ton of HP from that one, which means I'm not going to be able to knock him out with the Fire Fang. So that's actually just a really rough situation all around. Yeah, so I'm actually forced here to switch, and I decide to switch into Bellibolt just because it's a little bulky. And I don't think he'll have any super effective moves for my Bellibolt, and I can just kind of hopefully deal some decent damage with my electric type moves. So I go into Waddles, my Belly Bolt. I do have Thunderbolt, which is great. And he goes for Draining Kiss, and it does nothing. It does literally nothing to me. And that's great for me as well, because now I know, and that does boost my electric power with the ability that I have. But now I know that his special attack, Draining Kiss, is not doing that much to me, and his physical attacks are not going to be doing that much to me because he's burned. So I go for the Thunderbolt here. I figured he would probably switch into something, but, you know, I just kind of thought it was gonna be my best play here. I didn't want to make any predictions. He does have his Clodsire, of course, but I figured I guess I have Water Gun and even Mud Shot for that, so... Yeah, he does switch into Clodsire, of course. I figured I might as well try to go for Thunderbolt, right? He does switch a lot, though, so, you know, I should have expected that. Yeah, actually, in retrospect, even though I kind of figured it was my best play, I just wanted to make a play there, I probably should have just gone for the Water Gun predicting the switch, because his Tinkatuff just basically couldn't do anything to my Belly Bolt, so I think it was in my best interest to just to make that prediction, and if he by some chance stayed in with his Tinkatuff, I'd still just get some damage with the Water Gun, and probably not take too much damage either. So I don't think I lose anything by going for Water Gun there, and I do lose a lot by going for Thunderbolt and him going into Clodsire, as is what happened. So here he goes for the Mud Shot, and I'm going to go into my Lockix, just because Lockix is a strong Pokemon. I don't really have too much to hit this thing, but I mean, I just needed to get some damage, and here I go for the Lunge just to lower its attack. That actually does decent damage. Lockix has a pretty high attack stat, and even though it's a resisted move, that does some decent damage, like I said. So here I think I'm going to try to go for the Assurance, just because it's stab and, you know, it's not resisted by him, and I do barely miss that KO, and he gets up the Toxic Spikes. So yeah, this Clodsire, I think that's maybe that's one reason why Deiter, you know, has been beating me a lot, because his teams are pretty well rounded. They're pretty balanced. Like he's got these tanky Pokemon that are just so hard to take down. And with me, I think I just kind of choose Pokemon that I enjoy. I mean, that's not to say that Deiter doesn't like Clodsire, but I think with me, I focus more on just like the Pokemon that I like straight up, and I don't think too much about synergies and like you know, balance and stuff like that, which maybe I should do a little bit more of. But either way, he goes into Tinkaton here, Tinkatuff, whatever. He goes for the Drain Kiss. He is faster because of the Mud Shot speed drop from Clodsire. It's going to do a ton of damage, but luckily for me, that doesn't kill, so maybe I can get off some decent damage before going down. And I do. I get off a decent chunk with the Brick Break, and he is burned, so that's going to take him to half, but I know that his next move is going to kill me, so... I think I just decided to stay in and just go for the last ditch pounce. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's talk about that right there. Yeah, I decided to go for the last ditch pounce just because I figured I was already dead and I didn't want anything else to take damage. And he actually goes for Rock Smash, I think predicting a switch, and he does not kill me because of the burn. And that is huge. That is a huge moment for me because I'm able to get off the pounce, which lowers his speed, which again was like a miracle Hail Mary throw. And then I'm able to knock him out with the subsequent Brick Break. So that was a huge sequence for me. And I don't think Deiter was expecting that at all. I don't think he was expecting that at all. And I don't think either of us were expecting that really. So now he goes into his own Cyclizar, which of course is a huge threat, as I know, because my own Cyclizar is also really good. And I mean, yeah, I don't have any good switch-ins to this. And, you know, if I was at a higher health, there's a chance I could have taken a hit from it and gotten a lot of damage off with Brick Break, but obviously that's not how things are playing out. So he's going to knock me out very easily with the Aerial Ace, and that's going to leave me to decide who to switch into. I'd consider Belly Bolt here. I'm taking a look at my own Cyclizar. At the end of the day, I think I just decide Pomo, I mean. I'm just taking a look at all their stats here just to kind of see what I've got going on. And my Florigato is kind of weak. I end up deciding on Pomo because I'm pretty fast. I don't know if I'm faster than him though, but also I know that I can do a decent amount of damage with Arm Thrust. I just kind of wanted to see what would happen here. And of course he does still have the Toxic Spikes up, so that's going to really hurt me in the long run. He does switch out though, and he goes into his, I think his Scovillain. Okay, he has one as well, and that's kind of good for me just because Arm Thrust is going to be neutral, so it's going to do some decent damage. As you can see here though, it actually doesn't do that much. I don't remember how many hits I get off here though, but yeah, I'm just not in a great position. I think a big part of that is also just because he got off the toxic spikes. So yeah, I just don't have very much longevity on my team anymore. And Palma is a Pokemon with Volt Switch that could really threaten him just by being able to kind of garner that momentum and maybe force a switch and get some good damage with Volt Switch and then just go from there. But with the toxic spikes, that's going to really hinder that plan. So after looking through my current team and considering who I might want to switch into, I end up just deciding to stay in and just go for the Arm Thrust again, hoping to get off as much damage as possible. Unfortunately for me, I only get off 2 hits, and that is going to basically seal my fate because due to the poison, that's going to knock me out, even though I do live that flamethrower with 1 HP, so the toxic spikes really mattered there. And I only have 3 Pokemon left, none of which are particularly amazing, to be honest. I mean, Cyclizar is. Florigato's all right. And then Bellybolt's decent as well. But here I'm just taking a look at who I have, taking a moment to think about who I might want to send in. And I end up settling on Bellybolt. I don't really have too many good moves now. Fire and Grass is actually a really interesting typing because it actually ends up, the 2 types kind of nullify each other's weaknesses really well to the point where it ends up being neutral against a lot of typings, right? Ground is super effective against fire, but then resisted by grass, so that's neutral. Water is neutral against it. You know, so many of these types are just neutral. Bug is neutral against it as well, and it's really interesting. But anyways, I do go for the Mud Shot there, and it does okay damage. Here, I think I just go for the Thunderbolt just to get off damage because I know he's going to attack me. If I survive, then it'll boost my electric moves, and I do barely survive once again. So his Scovillain is not coming in clutch, actually. It's really funny. That's the second Pokemon that his Scovillain failed to knock out with that flamethrower. But where his Scovillain is not coming in clutch, his Clodsire did come in clutch because it was the one that got up the toxic spike. So that's just huge for him. It's just so unfortunate that I go down here as well. But either way, that's just how it's got to be. My last 2 Pokemon are physical attackers that are fast and don't have great defenses, so I kind of just gotta hope for the best. And I do send in Florigato. It's kind of the weakest of the 2 that I have left, but it's still capable of doing some decent damage, so I just kind of wanted to see what it could do here. And he sends in a shiny Knuckle Stack. I think that's what that one's called. He found a shiny. He found another shiny. He's gotten 2 Gen 9 shinies. I think I've only gotten 1 Gen 9 shiny. I've gotten a couple other shinies in the game, but they were like Skiddo and like someone else. But either way, yeah, that's pretty awesome for him. He's got a lot of luck there. And it's funny because I think he really just wanted to show me that he had a shiny Knuckle Stack, and not necessarily to just send it in. I mean, maybe he did want to send it in. He didn't know I was going to be sending in my Florigato. And then here I go for the Terastal just to kind of, I mean, get off a lot of damage with the Seed Bomb. I wonder if that was pretty hasty on my part, though, because I could have saved the Terastal for Cyclizar, maybe, so that might have been a mistake on my part. I also should have figured that he'd be switching out, predicting the Grass-type move with his Knuckle Stack, but I kind of just wanted to show off, too, and just get off a ton of damage. But I guess maybe this ends up helping because I do end up knocking out the Greavard, I believe, with the Terastal boosted Seed Bomb. Oh, I don't. Okay, so in that case, I should have just stayed in it, or just gone for the regular Seed Bomb, and then I could just follow that up with a Bite against his Greavard. But either way, this battle's looking decent for me now. It was looking bad before, but it's actually looking okay now because Greavard's going down here. He has his Knuckle Stack and he has his Cyclizar, so I just kind of really have to hope for the best, depending on who he switches in between his last 2 Pokemon here. And he does go into his Cyclizar, which is kind of what I was fearing because I'm pretty sure Cyclizar is faster than I am. And I just don't really have too many moves that are going to deal a lot of damage to it. I end up deciding to go for the Seed Bomb. I figured I would die anyway, but I wanted to go for the Seed Bomb here just to kind of... I mean, I think I calculated it and Seed Bomb would do more damage than Bite would because I'm Terastalized. And I didn't want to go for the U-turn because that would obviously force me to go into my own Cyclizar and get poisoned, and then, you know, that just wouldn't work out well for me. So I figured I'd just kind of sacrifice my my Florigato here, and that ends up meaning my last Pokemon is Cyclizar versus his Cyclizar. And at this point, we gotta hope, we gotta cross our fingers. It's really funny. Well, actually, I'm sorry. I think he still has his Knuckle stack, but it's just funny that a lot of our battles have been coming down to our same 2 Pokemon, and we just kind of have to hope for like winning a speed tie or hoping that one of our IVs is better than the others. I end up being faster than his, and I knock it out with the breaking swipe. Which is huge. So I end up being faster, but also I guess probably have good attack IVs as well. Either way, that was a moment that I was not expecting, and I was so happy. I was cheering and everything and rubbing it in his face. But his last Pokemon is a shiny Knuckle stack, which is super tanky. It's got a huge defense stat, and it's at full health. And I don't have any super effective moves. So I think I was messaging him here and just kind of letting him know that, yeah, that was an amazing moment for me, knocking out his Cyclizar with my own, but at the end of the day, I just don't think there's anything I can do to take down his Knuckle stack. And he, just to rub it in, he just terastallizes here. I think, is that Ghost? Oh, it's Rock. Okay, he terastallizes into the Rock Terastal, which, again, I don't have any ground or grass type moves. Actually, Cyclizar, I think, does learn Power Whip, so that'd be really cool if I had that, but unfortunately, I do not. And he goes for the double boosted Smackdown, which actually does not kill me. Actually, this was a funny moment too, because my Shed Skin actually removes my poison. So I was just hanging in there. Here I go for the bite, actually. Wait a minute. I think I remember what happens in this battle now. Okay, so here he was cussing up a storm, I think, in our group chat, because he, you know, everything was just going my way all of a sudden. I go for the bite here, and I get a critical hit, and he smacks me down. Okay. Well, for some reason I thought I flinched him to death, but either way, I was hoping for that. But yeah, so that's how the battle ends. That was another one where it definitely could have gone my way if one small thing had gone differently. But of course, that's how things go. I still had a ton of fun, and I think my second team is coming along pretty nicely. In our next battle, I think we're going to have 3 teams, so that'll be a ton of fun. And, you know, obviously I'll probably move things around, switch some Pokemon out, release some Pokemon that failed me in this battle. But either way, despite the fact that I lost both of those, they were both really, really close at the end of the day, and they were both a ton of fun. So thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and let me know in the comments how your Pokemon team has been shaping up. Do you have multiple teams like we do, or do you just have one team? Which Pokemon did you choose for your journey in Paldea? I appreciate you watching, and I'll talk to you soon.